That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years.
Oh no, nothing really comes to mind. I was like, Shih-Ching, listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they called him Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sonny.
Sonny Hostin just got called out so hard by Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus that it honestly felt like the whole moment spun completely out of control. What started as another confident hot take quickly turned into a messy on-air collapse that nobody really expected. And truthfully, you've probably never seen Sonny lose the room quite like this before. Gutfeld came in with non-stop sharp jokes. Tyrus backed everything up with facts and receipts. And Sonny, well, she ended up saying the things that made the entire argument fall apart in real time. If you thought daytime TV still played it safe, think again, because this exchange hit so hard it felt like the table on The View might actually crack. Buckle up, because this story is about to get crazy.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sonny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe.
Sonny Hostin sat at that familiar table, dressed in polished style and full of confident outrage, ready to deliver another passionate speech like she was leading a masterclass in cable news drama. But instead of getting applause or praise, she walked straight into a brutal reality check from Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus, coming from a completely different studio, which somehow made the whole thing hit even harder. One second she was speaking like her opinion settled the entire debate. Next, the internet was turning her long speech into a viral meme about confidence crashing into facts. It was another reminder of how quickly things can fall apart when bold claims run into real pushback.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that.
It didn't feel like The View anymore. It felt more like a full-on roast session, and Sonny walked right into it with no protection, while the pressure kept rising fast. Gutfeld never even had to step into the studio to completely tear apart her argument. All he needed was one viral clip, some quick logic, and the kind of sarcasm that cut straight through every point she tried to make. And Tyrus never once had to shout. Instead, he calmly raised the pressure so smoothly it felt like watching someone quietly pull apart a weak argument piece by piece. While Sonny pointed fingers from her seat at the table, Tyrus showed receipts that made her entire story look thin enough to fall apart instantly. And honestly, this wasn't even the first time she treated her chair on The View like a dramatic stage for speeches nobody asked for, because she often talks like every small issue is somehow the end of the world.
Sure, all that, and the price of butter. Sonny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, asking that question, it might have been a closer election. But when oh no, nothing really comes to mind. I was like, Shih-Ching, listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they called him Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down.
She once confidently suggested that some voters of color couldn't really understand their own political views unless those views lined up with hers. Like she had somehow become the final judge of which opinions were acceptable and which ones were not. In her world, anyone who disagrees must be confused, manipulated, or simply not informed enough to see things her way. But when someone spends too much time speaking from a moral high ground, eventually that position starts to shake, and sooner or later, somebody comes along and challenges it head on. That's exactly what Gutfeld and Tyrus did without ever stepping onto the set, throwing uncomfortable facts from a distance, while Sunny reacted like someone who showed up completely unprepared for the fight she walked into.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. So instead, let's check out this clip from Monday's episode of The View when the ladies put their science caps on and discuss the solar eclipse.
What made the moment even crazier was how fast the show seemed to fall apart once real pressure hit. The co-hosts kept backing each other up while the conversation drifted further off track. One gave dramatic reactions, another looked half distracted, and the whole panel felt more rehearsed than real. That's often the feeling people get watching The View, where agreement seems expected and tough criticism gets brushed aside. Whenever the pressure builds, the conversation quickly shifts toward emotion, buzzwords, or distractions to avoid the main issue. But this time, the backlash was simply too big and too obvious to cover up.
Oh no, nothing really comes to mind. I was like, Ching, listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they call them Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sunny.
Because Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't play by the usual daytime TV rules. They came in from the five, sounding calm, confident, and completely unfazed, delivering simple points and sharp humor that slowly tore Sunny's argument apart. There was no yelling or over-the-top drama, just steady comments that landed one after another while Sunny reacted like she was trying to stop the conversation from slipping away. And nothing hits harder than watching someone used to applause suddenly met with silence that exposes every weak point at once. Of course, Sunny will be back at the table tomorrow with another long speech and the same familiar attitude. But moments like this stick with people. What started as another predictable debate quickly turned into comedy gold once Gutfeld and Tyrus entered the conversation and flipped the entire argument upside down with one simple piece of logic nobody on set seemed ready for.
I think that women, white women in particular, want to protect the patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. Yeah. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Yeah. Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist.
The topic was crime and policing in America, something Sunny talks about with intense passion every single time it comes up. She launched into another emotional speech filled with dramatic reactions, finger-pointing, and big statements that made policing sound like the source of every problem in the country. According to her argument, crime was being misunderstood, and the real issue was that people simply were not listening closely enough to voices like hers. It was classic Sunny. Strong emotion, big confidence, but very little actual data behind it, delivered with the certainty of someone convinced social media trends equal real policy. Then Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus stepped into the conversation, calm, direct, and much more prepared, responding with facts, statistics, and sharp humor that quickly start pulling her argument apart. Gutfeld made one simple point that instantly shifted the mood, noting how many of the loudest people calling to defund the police often live far away from the neighborhoods most affected by crime. He pointed out the contradiction of supporting private security for themselves while expecting working-class communities to rely on social programs instead of stronger policing. Suddenly, Sunny looked completely caught off guard, and the energy in the room changed fast as her argument started falling apart in real time.
It's not even that. And The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sonny, and the, was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back.
Tyrus stepped in next with a calm and steady breakdown, packed with statistics about violent crime in cities that supported defunding policies. He also pointed out the hypocrisy of celebrities praising community-based safety while still hiring off-duty police officers for their own protection. His delivery was relaxed and controlled, like someone repeating facts he's explained countless times before to people who never really want to hear them. Then Greg came in with one sharp line that completely changed the mood. Suddenly, the discussion on The View shifted from confident debate to full damage control. Sonny tried to recover by jumping between talking points and avoiding the main issue, hoping the moment would pass before anyone noticed how badly the argument had fallen apart. But viewers noticed immediately, and so did the internet. Then Tyrus delivered one final point that quietly finished the conversation. He didn't need to yell or turn the moment into a performance. He simply stayed calm, laid out the facts, and left the panel struggling to regain control of the discussion.
The problem is that you have to go after the racist people. And if be the CEO goes, you know what, I'm not going to allow a woman on my show or man that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people. And this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racist on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know, Emily.
He delivered his points with the kind of sharp honesty that comes from real life experience, not polished studio talking points, and the contrast was impossible to ignore. This wasn't carefully scripted television designed to impress an audience. It was direct, no-nonsense logic that hit much harder than Sonny expected. Tyrus focused on something deeper than politics. He called out the gap between media elites and the everyday people they often claim to represent. While Sonny spoke as if she fully understood working-class struggles, Tyrus reminded viewers that there's a big difference between talking about people and actually living the realities they face. He made the point calmly and casually, which somehow made it land even harder. Meanwhile, Sonny seemed completely caught off guard, sitting in silence while trying to figure out how to respond. Even the rest of the panel looked uncomfortable as the conversation quickly slipped out of their control.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
And the moment the facts started pushing back harder than Sonny expected, she switched from confident commentator to someone suddenly claiming she was being unfairly attacked. As soon as Tyrus and Greg challenged her arguments directly, the tone completely changed. Instead of defending her points, she started framing the criticism as hostility, even though she had spent most of the discussion throwing sharp accusations herself. The reality was simple. Sonny sounded completely comfortable calling out everyone else as long as nobody challenged her in return, but once the pressure came back her way, that confident image started falling apart fast. You could almost see the panic setting in as the conversation slipped out of her control. The irony was hard to miss. The same person who often lectures others about accountability and empathy suddenly shifted into victim mode the second the debate stopped going her way, turning the entire moment into a dramatic scene viewers immediately noticed.
So that makes Sonny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the View's gravitational pull.
And then there was the audience, completely caught in the middle of the chaos, unsure whether to laugh, clap, or just sit there in shock as the whole conversation fell apart on live TV. Social media exploded within minutes, turning Sonny's meltdown into viral memes across the internet. Suddenly, she wasn't just a co-host having a rough segment. She became an example of how quickly confidence can collapse when strong opinions run into real pushback. But instead of addressing the moment afterward, The View did what it often does best, acting like nothing happened. The next episode moved on with cheerful topics and celebrity gossip, avoiding the entire debate like it never existed. One minute viewers watched a tense on-air collapse, and the next they were talking about lighthearted trends, as if the previous disaster had magically disappeared. The effort to pretend everything was normal was almost more unbelievable than the meltdown itself.
Of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny, she is so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who she was.
But here's why the whole moment mattered. The show often feels like a media echo chamber, where strong opinions get rewarded more than real debate, and disagreement is treated like a problem instead of part of the conversation. Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't just challenge Sunny, they challenged the entire style of commentary behind the show, pointing out how disconnected it can sound from the everyday people it claims to represent. Sunny's meltdown became more than just an awkward TV moment. It was a reminder that emotional speeches and confidence can only go so far when facts start pushing back. Looking back, the pattern was obvious. Sunny opened with confidence. Gutfeld calmly broke down the argument with facts. Tyrus added even more direct points, and Sunny struggled to recover as the conversation slipped away. In the end, it felt like reality finally broke through the show's carefully protected bubble, and viewers noticed immediately.